what's going on there in Periscope land? Happy Friday afternoon. Here we are on another beautiful sunny day in Palm Harbor, Florida. If this is your first time tuning in to me, I'm Bernie Borges from Social Business Engine, and this is episode 7 of Poolside Sales Chat. If this is your first time tuning in, I record these on Friday afternoons usually, weather permitting, also health permitting. Last Friday, not so much health-wise, and also location permitting. I'm not always here at home. Like next Friday, I'll be in New York City, so I'm not planning on being by any kind of pool in New York City, so I'm probably going to have to skip next week, and I'll do episode 8 the following week after that. So here I am, episode 7, Poolside Sales Chat. And for those of you that are tuning in live, thank you. What else would you be doing on a Friday afternoon? Of course, you might be in a different time zone, so maybe it's only 12:15 on the West Coast for you, or if you're in Europe somewhere, then it's happy hour for you. And in that case, why are you even tuning in? You should be doing happy hour somewhere. So anyway, once again, this is Bernie Borges, episode 7, Poolside Sales Chat, and here's what I want to talk with you about this episode. There's this concept that is called the buyer's journey. Some people call it the seller's journey, and that's really what I want to address today, is that there really is no such thing as the seller's journey. And it's not just from recent times that we can say that there's no such thing as the seller's journey. It's really, as far back as I can remember, in B2B selling, it's always been about the buyer's journey. And I want to give you a little frame of reference for that, because I want to take you back about 15 or 20 years ago. Now, whether or not you were in B2B sales 15 or 20 years ago, or depending on your age and that kind of thing, I want to take you back anyway. And there was this process in B2B sales that was the RFP. RFP stands for Request for Proposal. If you were a vendor, a B2B vendor, and you got an RFP, you usually had one of two reactions. One was you were elated because you got this request for proposal from a really awesome company that you were hoping to do some selling to. Or maybe you were really bummed because you really know what the RFP process was like. You see, in those times, and again, I'm only going back about 15 or 20 years, the RFP process was rigged, and it probably still is rigged today. But before I get to today, let me just point out that in those times, before the internet, where the B2B buyer had no online resources to go do their homework, it was all built on relationships. The B2B buyer basically rigged the RFP. It was spec'd. The specs of the RFP were written between the B2B buyer and his or her favorite vendor that they already had a relationship with, and they were really planning to buy from. But they were required to put out the RFP anyway, just by requirement, to get at least 3 proposals. So in those selling days, it was really all about building great relationships. Of course, you still have to have a good product, okay, that aside. But you had to build great relationships, so when those RFPs came out, you were the one that were actually controlling the specs. So remember, you see what I'm saying? And even in those days, before the internet, it was the seller's journey, the buyer's journey, and not the seller's journey. That's the whole point I'm getting at here. So now let's come back to today, right? Today, hey Joseline, hey, today it is still the buyer's journey. Now for different reasons, right? The buyer is in control because the buyer has at their fingertips access to information online, right? Now we all know this one stat. The B2B buyer is 70%, yes, 70% of the way through the buying process online before they're even willing to talk to a B2B sales vendor, right? 70%. So how can you get in that little 30% window when 70% of that window is done online? Okay, now let me give you another stat, and I think I've mentioned this stat before. 75% of B2B buyers look for information online about the products and services that they're considering in social channels, not just in search engines, but in social channels. So getting back to that 70% stat where the buyer does 70% of his or her evaluation process online, how can you get in that 70% window? So I want to give you three tips, 3 ways that you can get into that 70% window. Number 1, be visible, right? Be visible. If you're invisible, then you're not going to be discovered while that B2B buyer is doing his or her research, right? So, ways to be visible. Be active online on LinkedIn and Twitter. Publish articles that you write, that you author, that are well written about specific topics that you have B2B domain expertise in. Now, if you're not a writer, then curate articles and share those articles. Like other articles that people are writing on those topics. Comment on them. And again, share them with your network. Tag people that you have really, really strong relationships with so that they're okay with you tagging them. And do that with some frequency. You know, use good judgment on that, of course, right? Tag them and don't be surprised when they tag you back and share you with their network. So number 1, be visible through both LinkedIn and through Twitter. The same tips apply through Twitter. Sharing great content through Twitter. Okay. Number 2, be helpful. Remember what your mom told you or taught you when you were a little kid, right? Be polite and be helpful. Share your toys with your friends. In this case, your toys are both your knowledge and your insights as well as the content that's available to you, the resources that are available to you. Share all of that. Be helpful to the people that you want to reach. Be helpful to anybody in your network. And you know what? Don't even expect anything in return. Just be helpful. Be in groups answering questions. Make introductions to people who would gain value by getting to know each other. Bring other people and other subject matter experts into a discussion where you're involved in a discussion and you need somebody else, whether it's from your company or not. Just be helpful. Okay? All right. Tip number 3, and this is probably the most important tip, and that is, and this is also something Mom probably taught you as well, and that is be a good listener. Now, I'm not talking about this kind of listening, even though that's important, and we're not here to talk about, selling 101, right? This is all about poolside sales chat, social selling, right? I'm talking about being a good social listener, being a good listener online. So here's a few ways you can be a good listener in social channels. On LinkedIn, do advanced searches on keywords, products, companies, topics, etc. Do those searches on LinkedIn and then save them. Save them as saved searches, okay? And then go look at those searches, if not on a daily basis, a few times a week, so you can see who's commenting on those, who's engaging in those saved searches, okay? And you might just discover people that are actively engaged in some of that 70% online research for B2B products and services. So create and save searches in LinkedIn. Another way to do that, to listen, is on Twitter, okay? Create Twitter streams, create streams on Twitter using either hashtags or keywords, or don't forget conference hashtags. Conferences are some of the most valuable places online. Even if you are not physically attending the conference, you can still be engaged in the conversation that's happening at that conference by following the hashtag of that conference. I do that for several conferences, some of which I attend, and some of the conferences that I even don't attend. Okay, so just set up hashtag streams. Use tools like TweetDeck, Hootsuite, Buffer, whatever tool du jour, whatever conference you want to attend, doesn't matter. Okay, but or tool rather you want to attend, it doesn't matter. The idea is to basically be a good social listener. Now, if you are doing social listening actively, and I mean actively, like on a daily basis, then you can pick up buying signals. You can pick up on conversations that people are having around topics that are relevant to you in your B2B products and services, and you might just uncover a sales opportunity. So let me recap for you, okay? Number 1, be visible online. Number 2, be helpful, okay? And number 3, be a good social listener. And if you do these things actively, you stand a greater chance of being engaged with the B2B buyer in that 70% window where she is actively doing online research without necessarily engaging with a B2B seller like yourself. All right. That is it for episode 7. Hey, for more on tips like this, go to socialbusinessengine.com. You can check out our blog, our weekly podcast. We have training options there that suit everybody's different needs. So check us out at socialbusinessengine.com. Until next time, I wish you continued sunshine. See ya.